Hello and welcome to week 4 of the course EU Security and the Future of NATO. In previous weeks, you explored the historical foundations of NATO and examined the European Union as an emerging security actor. This week, you will focus on the relationship between NATO and the European Union and how these two organizations cooperate within the broader European security architecture. Understanding this relationship is essential because European security today depends heavily on institutional cooperation between NATO and the EU. During this week, you will analyze how these organizations coordinate policies, share responsibilities, and respond to common security challenges. The European security system is shaped by multiple international institutions that work together to address security challenges. Among the most important of these institutions are NATO and the European Union. While NATO is primarily responsible for collective defense and military security, the European Union contributes through civilian crisis management, diplomatic initiatives, and economic stabilization policies. Because many countries are members of both organizations, NATO and the EU have developed mechanisms for institutional cooperation and policy coordination. As you explore this topic, you should analyze how cooperation between these institutions strengthens European security and how institutional overlap can sometimes create policy challenges. This week introduces several key concepts that will help you understand the relationship between NATO and the European Union. One important concept is the NATO-EU strategic partnership, which refers to the cooperation between the two organizations in areas such as crisis management, cybersecurity, and defense capabilities. Another important framework is the Berlin Plus Agreement, which allows the European Union to use NATO military resources for EU-led missions. These mechanisms illustrate how institutional cooperation allows different organizations to contribute to shared security objectives. As you study the materials this week, you should consider how institutional cooperation affects the effectiveness of international security governance. This week includes several learning activities designed to help you analyze the institutional relationship between NATO and the European Union. First, you should review the lecture materials and assigned readings which explain the development of NATO-EU cooperation. Next, you will participate in the discussion forum where you will analyze the advantages and challenges of cooperation between international security organizations. You will also complete a short quiz designed to help you review the key concepts introduced this week. Finally, you will complete a weekly analytical project where you will examine the strategic implications of NATO-EU cooperation. This week also includes an interactive analytical activity. You will explore examples of joint cooperation between NATO and the European Union in crisis management and security operations. Through this activity, you will analyze how both organizations coordinate their policies and how they divide responsibilities in addressing international security challenges. As you work through the activity, you should think critically about how institutional cooperation contributes to the stability of the European security system. In the discussion forum, you will analyze the following question. Does cooperation between NATO and the European Union strengthen or complicate European security governance? When writing your response, you should support your argument using examples from the readings or policy materials introduced in this week's module. Your post should present a clear analytical perspective, and you should also respond to the contributions of at least 2 classmates. This discussion will allow you to engage in academic debate and explore different perspectives on institutional cooperation in international security. At the end of the weekly module, you will complete a short quiz designed to help you review the key concepts introduced in this lesson. The quiz will focus on topics such as NATO-EU strategic cooperation, the Berlin Plus Agreement, the structure of the European security architecture. Completing the quiz will help you consolidate your understanding before progressing to the next module. Your weekly project will focus on analyzing the strategic relationship between NATO and the European Union. You may choose the format that best demonstrates your understanding of the topic. For example, you may submit a short policy analysis essay, a video explanation, a podcast commentary, an infographic, or a narrated presentation. Regardless of the format you choose, your project should demonstrate critical analysis and engagement with the concepts introduced this week. To guide your work, please consult the project assessment rubric available in the course platform. The rubric explains how your work will be evaluated, focusing on conceptual understanding, analytical reasoning, use of evidence, clarity of communication. Using the rubric during the development of your project will help you produce a strong and well-structured submission. Week 4 helps you understand how international institutions cooperate to maintain stability within the European security system. As you work through this week's materials, you should reflect on how institutional coordination between NATO and the European Union shapes contemporary security governance. Your analysis this week will prepare you for the upcoming modules, where you will explore NATO enlargement, crisis management operations, and the future of European security cooperation. I look forward to seeing your contributions in the discussion forum and your analytical projects in the weekly assignment. Good luck with your work this week.